So we usually start with announcements. Just quickly, I just wanted to remind folks, those here and those who will be watching, of our generative AI sessions that have been held in the spring. They alternate weeks, Tuesdays 8 a.m. or 4 p.m. The next session will be this coming Tuesday at 8 a.m. And I can put the Zoom in the chat, but they've been really informative sessions on everything ranging from research tools to, sorry, Kim's sending the link out again. Research tools to tips for using the AI tools in your classes. So I think they've been very well attended. So again, if you have an interest or, are just starting out, please consider attending one of these. And I just put the Zoom link for those into chat. The only other thing I'll just mention is we do have our all college in-person meeting on this next Friday, April 5th. It'll be in person at West Campus, and we'll be doing a lot of highlighting of different team-based activities in the college, particularly related to knowledge generation. It'll be more interactive. There'll be tables set up. You can learn more about things like the Learning Futures collaboratives, as well as other projects being undertaken by staff and faculty at the college. So we'll be able to get up, walk around and things like that. So it'll be a little more interactive than usual. Since we do have a meeting after, a different meeting after the all college meeting, we won't be having it just an hour next week. So just wanted to put that on people's radars too. So I'll shift now, and I should say the Just an Hour sessions are a collaborative effort by myself, Betty G, Punya, Mishra, and Iveta Solova, all of us associate deans in the college. Unfortunately, Punya and Iveta are traveling today, so they can't be here, but they are eager to hear the recording afterwards. So our topic today, and our participants, our topic today is funded research in STEM, and all of our participants will be able to share something about the quite varied and interesting projects that they've been engaged with. A common theme among the projects are developing strategies and creating new knowledge about how to address ongoing and systemic inequities in STEM education. Each of the participants today, I think, is focusing on somewhat different groups of folks who have typically not been participating or been as successful in STEM programs in different settings as we would hope. Each participant has received some funding for their research from the National Science Foundation, as well as other organizations. And what we hope to do today is talk about some of the successes they've experienced, the challenges of their work in this area, and hopefully share a bit about putting together successful proposals for funding from NSF and other organizations. So we have 3 participants today, Janice Mack, who is clinical assistant professor in our college, and you also an assistant director? Well, Janice, you can tell us maybe a little bit about what you're doing with the Learning Engineering Initiative too, because I think that's a really exciting program at the university level that is relevant to the topic. One thing in particular we're hoping that Janice can talk to us about is her NSF Career Award, which is a very prestigious award given to early career scholars. And her project title is Advancing Equity in K-12 Computer Science Education Policy. And I know you've got other funded projects too, Janet, but that was just one that I wanted to mention. We have Peter Valero, Associate Professor. The project title, the one that we wanted to focus on in particular, was Building Latina STEM Interest Through Community Cultural Wealth and Familial Problem-Based Learning, also funded by the National Science Foundation. And Tara, I always mispronounce your last name because the Nkrumah, right?
It's like the letter N, and then crew and ma.
And Nkrumah, right. So Tara's project is Well, she's got a couple that we thought we could focus on. One is called Black Girls as Creators, an intersectional learning ecosystem towards gendered racial equity in artificial intelligence education. And I know Punya is particularly disappointed that he's not here to hear more about that project. And you've got another project funded by RTI International that's titled Cultivating STEM Equity Ambassadors to address the barriers to equity in STEM education. So both really, really intriguing topics. So as usual, Punya and I have prepared some questions as prompts for the discussion, but and particularly since we have a smaller group here, do feel free, those of you who are attending, to post questions or comments in the chat as we go through. But I thought we would start with brief introductions of our participants, so the invited participants. So if you would each introduce yourselves professionally as well as personally. For example, what do you like to do outside of academics for relaxation? So let me start with Janice. Would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Betty. Hi, everyone. My name is Janice Max, and as Betty mentioned, I am a clinical assistant professor in the Teachers College, and then recently appointed assistant director of curriculum pedagogy with the Learning Engineering Institute, and 25% right now, and then moving to 50-50 load next year. And since coming to ASU, I've been working on a few projects. One is the one Betty mentioned, the Career Award, and then some other ones with Google and some local foundations, the Burton Family Foundation, all around data science, computer science education. I can talk more about that later. And personally, I really like baking and cooking, exploring the science of cooking. So STEM infuses all aspects of my life. And so just a funny story, we were looking up, uba halaya. I don't know if you know about that, but it's ube jam. And we found some at the store, but I realized it's carcinogenic because, it has that label now of the food colorings. So I'm like, that is going in the trash. And so we looked up how to make it homemade. We're going to make it with the ube powder. And then anyway, so that's a little bit of the adventures we have in our household. And then we're going to do, and I also really like hiking. So.
Thanks so much, Janice. Talk about out of school STEM learning and engagement. So that's fabulous. I'm not sure I'd like that perspective though. Approaching cooking in that way would get very complicated, I think. So Peter, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Peter Rolero. I'm Associate Professor of Science Education. My home campus is the West Campus. I've been in science education for 40 years now. And some things I like to do. Usually I play pickleball at 6 a.m. A few times a week. And this semester, for the first time ever, I'm taking a ceramics class with undergraduate lower division students at a community college. And it's a different way to look at project-based learning. So it's kind of fun to be with the undergraduate group.
That's so cool. I love how everyone's connecting their STEM work to things that they do outside of professional work. So no pressure for you, Tara. You don't have to make that connection.
I got connections now. I got connections.
Would you introduce yourself now?
Thank you, Betty. Tara Nkrumah. I'm an assistant professor in the Teachers College. I joined ASU in 2019 as a postdoc. My background is in science, STEM education. I've taught internationally for 7 years in West Africa and 15, 16 years here in the US. So it's kind of interesting to say 25 years of teaching. What? I know. And I only look 18, guys, My research really centers on equity and I focus heavily on teacher preparation to promote equity in their teaching practices and to support learners to engage in equitable ways. And so personally, here's my science. So I am a certified fitness cardio instructor. And so that's how I get my STEM, cardio. And I tell them to breathe, in aerobics. Oh, yes, there you go. And I also love baking. So I need to get with you, Janice, because I love the baking aspect of life. So yes, that's a little bit about me.
I love it. So I think it says something about everyone's passion for STEM, that they're pursuing it in all different aspects of their lives. But so our next question, to get us kicked off in terms of more of the professional STEM focus, and Tara, I'll start with you. We'll go in reverse. What big questions or educational issues are you most passionate about in the area of STEM education, and why?
So I started out with, and I always give credit to my dad. My dad was a brilliant math and science person. I mean, he taught me everything I needed to know about science. So he was my first STEM teacher. And growing up as an African American, I never understood why others that looked like me didn't enjoy science or didn't understand why it wasn't relevant in just practical things that happen throughout their life. And so for me, I took on this mission for my work to make science, STEM education relevant, but more importantly, to use the education towards disrupting systemic inequities. And so my focus is heavily directed at how can we use critical frameworks, and the critical framework that I heavily rely on is culturally relevant pedagogy. And I use that as a framework to support teacher preparation in STEM education that's directed at promoting equity. But one of the things that I call my special sauce is I use critical arts-based methods. And so I use theater of the oppressed because often culturally relevant pedagogy is not focused on, at least the implementation in my research has not been focused on the critical consciousness aspect of it, where it becomes a tool to disrupt inequities. And so I use theater of the oppressed as a way to really focus on the systems of oppression and how individuals that look like myself, not even by race, but by ability, sexuality, all of the different forms of isms that become barriers for individuals within the field. So that's a little bit about my main focus is how can I use culturally relevant pedagogy in the preparation of teachers in ways through critical arts-based methods to support equity outcomes within STEM education.
Thanks so much, Tara. Peter, you're up next.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm interested in improving diversity in science careers because we get better solutions when we have more diverse people working on problems, and of course to also promote equity, more better careers for people who sometimes might not have ever considered those type of careers. And a second thing I'm very interested in is redefining STEM in America to be more than robotics. It seems like it just goes to, oh, STEM is robotics, STEM is robotics. And I'm leading with garden-based learning as an alternative way to get people interested in STEM careers.
Thanks so much. Interesting. Just an aside, thinking about what you all are doing with STEM outside of your professional work, none of you mentioned something to do with robotics or computing or anything in your out of professional life, which is just kind of an interesting observation. So, Janice.
So I am, I'll start with like professionally where I've come from, and that is that I've been a teacher, instructional coach, assistant principal, district curriculum person, and then state board of education member. And so those 5.5 years on the state board really shaped my view of systems and how to approach equity from a systems lens and understanding the sociocultural context behind decisions that are made or not made, or why they're made and why they're not made. And so I really take that systems lens, and that is what my career is about, really thinking about at the state education and policy level, like what is happening and how are policies being driven, how are they being mediated, what are the outputs, what are the activities that are undertaken, and with what goals. So that is a little bit of the why I do what I do, and then with that to aim to disrupt the existing situation to hopefully broaden participation in areas like computing that we know are very underrepresented, and how critical it is the time that we're living in order to ensure that all students have access and opportunity to subjects like computing, like data science, understanding how AI works, to really have an informed, computationally literate, digitally literate citizenry. I mean, that's where where I'm coming from. And to do that, all my grants really partner intentionally with these kind of partners like this, because I know it's not just about my work and my research. I intentionally partner with state level, national level partners. Another one, that a smaller grant that I'm doing that probably been the most meaningful to me is right here within Arizona, partnering with the Arizona Department of Education and the math leadership team to really rethink math pathways. So rethink calculus as the endpoint, for example. And so really that's the lens that I take to all of my STEM areas of research. And then I'll just share, most recently, I was honored to be selected to be on the National Academies Committee to work on developing competencies for the future of data and computing and the role that K-12 has to play in that. And I'll put a link to that in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Janice. Yeah, and I think everyone's work really shows the importance of working at multiple levels. I mean, to create change. I mean, from working with individual students and teachers to the school level and the policy level. So awesome to see all that happening. So Janice, maybe I'll stick with you and shift to a little bit of information about specific funded projects that you're involved with. So could you describe your current project? It can be the career grant or another one if you'd like to talk about, and tell us a little bit more specifically about the nature of the project, how it aligns with those big questions that you're interested in, and how you feel it's making a distinctive contribution to the field. So just small question.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess a little bit of background. I'll focus on the career grant because really that's the space that I've spent a lot of time as an educator and policymaker. If you look at the national landscape, there's been a lot of computer science education policies that have been driven from a national level, primarily from certain organizations, and one of them being like making computer science a mandatory graduation requirement. Every state should have a state CS plan, and these in and of themselves are great, but how they get implemented at the state level and, with what levels of support is what I'm kind of looking at. And so I think this is really an interesting thing. So in looking at, for example, the position of CS education state supervisors who are critical in implementing CS education within their states, to kind of see what kind of supports they have, where are they positioned within the State Department, and to see how this one policy can have so many interpretations and so many implementations. And I think this has been really interesting. And then another one that's near and dear to my heart is I've been partnering, probably 10 years ago I was asked to be part of a grant on the Navajo Nation, part of the Native Co-Talkers grant that was out, in the northern Arizona. So I did that 10 years ago. And recently I was asked to be a part of a phase 2 of that, which is working with Tohono O'odham and Pasco Yaqui in southern Arizona. So I'm partnering with a team on that. And that I just shifted we've really done a lot of listening circles in the community. We've worked with the tribal elders, very, very close Native and non-Native team working together. And so this is really near and dear to me, just the learning that we've been doing together and growing as a team. So I think that has been powerful for me. So just in different spheres, but related.
Very cool. Thanks. Tara, why don't you go next? Specific project, one or two that you're involved with? How does it align with those large questions you're interested in? And what do you think is sort of distinctive about the project?
Wonderful. So I'll talk first about the NSF with the Black Girls as Creators, and AI. When I'm co-working with 3 collaborators, one at the University of Pitt and then the University of Texas in Arlington, and both of them have been long-term friends in terms of our work together and how we support each other. And it was interesting when the racial equity grant came out, we immediately identified ourselves as like, okay, we got to do this. And one thing that was helpful was that we all had different strengths. So my University of Pitt was the computer science person, and our UT Arlington is the racial equity person. And so myself, I'm the culturally relevant, I'm the professional development, and I also have the background in STEM education. And one of the things that is helping with my research through this grant is really focusing on the whole ecosystem, which is what we were focusing on. We often see in the literature where you have initiatives to increase representation, particularly of Black girls, And the focus is often done in a very isolated way. It's like we're working with just the learners. How can we promote the learners? And we ignore the professional development aspect of it, and we ignore the technology aspect of it and the creation of how it can support the learner. And so our initiative was really to see how can we pull all of those things together? How can we not only focus on increasing Black girls' creativity and access in AI, but how can we prepare the teachers that are working with them to be culturally relevant? And how can we create technologies that support the Black girls' creativity in a culturally relevant way? So that was like the premise of our study, and how we went into this is like, how can we not leave off all of the components? Because if the Black girls do really well, they can just come across a teacher that's not informed culturally, and then that just it doesn't help them. They don't succeed, and it just kind of becomes a barrier. So we were trying to see how can we create a model that really shows the importance of all of these aspects, the total ecosystem being restructured and reimagined so that the supports are there and sustainable. And so that's one project that I'm extremely excited about, where there's a co-designing aspect of it with not only the teachers, but I'm working with the girls to help facilitate the curriculum for teacher professional development. So that's something new to the work that I'm doing, is how do I work with the girls to develop the curriculum for the professional development to truly make an authentic, culturally relevant model for their support. The other grants that I'm working on has been really nice. I've been working with them for over 3-4 years, and this is with the Department of Defense, and they've been extremely generous in supporting my research as it relates to teacher professional development, again, around culturally relevant pedagogy, but then also allowing me to run programs for girls that can kind of help me study how are the teachers taking up the culturally relevant professional development and applying it. So it's a nice opportunity for me to not only prepare them, but then also to observe them and see how they're taking it up, and then help me to refine and, reimagine what my professional development needs to look like to better support the implementation of culturally relevant practices. So I'm like in heaven over here with the supports financially to be able to engage in the work that I dream about and that I focus on. So that's just a little bit about what I'm doing.
Wow, so cool. Yeah, Janice and Tara, both the projects just sound fascinating. And again, looking at larger ecosystems, which does seem to me to be a significant step forward in some of the work that I've seen over these years. So, but Peter, tell us a bit about your project, some of the details, how it aligns with your burning questions, and, sort of what you think the contribution is, the particular contribution.
Thanks. So yeah, I'll start with my smaller grant. But 40 years ago, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Kenya for 3 years, and I've been doing some projects in Africa. Recently, 3 years ago, I started working in Malawi, which is described as the poorest peaceful country on the planet. So if there's no war going on, Malawi is the poorest country around. But recently, we received a Mandela Washington grant to travel grant. And so my wife and I are going to be going into northern Malawi and working with 3 schools there on a curriculum we developed called Sowing Scientific Seeds. The idea is that in Africa, practical work, what they call laboratory work, we call here, is very hard to do because their funding is so poor. Like, schools don't have electricity, they don't have chairs to sit on, they don't have desks oftentimes. So we want to try and make agricultural pursuits the basis of developing science process skills. So we're going in with the curriculum to have students to really talk about control group experiments, and have them design and conduct, working in pairs on control group experiments using raised bed gardens. And so we're excited by that. We're going to be leaving at the end of next month, and we'll spend about a month there. So we're excited by that. And then we're also excited by the NSF project. We're in our final year of our NSF project. And my advice about NSF projects is always have a year where it just focuses on dissemination, because the previous years we've been so busy with running the program. We had a 7-week program for 5th and 6th grade Latina girls and their parents. We did it in Avondale. We had if anyone has been with our college for a while, you know PBEL, Problem-Based Enhanced Language Learning. It was a big U.S. Department of Education grant that we had, and we took the PBEL model and we made it into family problem-based learning, where there's a whole lot of conversation that goes around with solving the problems and doing the projects. So we have a project in gardening, that's a 7-week project, and also in rocketry. And then we combine it with a conversation group where we separate the parents from the daughters and have separate conversations where we can bring in role models and talk about how parents can help and talk about girls' aspirations and their goals. And I won't get into the data, but very successful in terms of parents and daughters both liking the program, both seeing huge benefits from it, tracking them along the way. We see big gains in terms of girls' science identity. We also videotape the work of the parents and the daughters together. And I'll just share a couple of quick findings. Over the 7 weeks, we observed that the amount of talk that the girls did went down over time. And then the amount of talk the parents did went down over time, which is kind of, okay, that's an interesting result. And the girls' help-seeking behavior over the 7 weeks went down. And the parents giving help went down over the 7 weeks. And then the last thing is aha moments, where we coded for aha moments. Both of those increased for both parents and daughters over the course of the 7 weeks.
You're just going to stop there?
I'm going to stop with the aha moment.
No.
I'm going to drop the mic with that.
Okay, so let me pause. Does anyone else here want to ask a question or make a comment? I can just keep rolling forward, but I want to make sure you all have a chance to address anything that you're interested in hearing about in particular. Anyone? I'm going to ask each of the participants to first talk about how you define success in relationship to your project. So what helps you know that your things are progressing the way that you want to? And what has been most important to achieving this success? What have been some challenges and how have you addressed them? So, and just to mix things up, Tara, I'm going to go back to you. So how do you define success?
All right, thank you for this question. So I thought about initially, because culturally relevant pedagogy is my life, and that's one of the tenets when they talk about academic success. And for me, whenever I'm going into professional development, preparing teachers and engaging them with the theory, we understand that success is not something that can be standardized. It changes, it differs for every person, depending on their situation, and just trying to get them to appreciate that when they are assessing students and determining the impact or the influence of their content on student knowledge, they have to come prepared to unlearn the ways in which we have traditionally been taught success through standardized testing, through measures that often exclude individuals because that's not their method of performance that truly demonstrates their success. So for me, and I'm in the throes of analyzing data, so this is quite timely. When I think about success, for me, I'm looking for evidence of interpretations of culturally relevant pedagogy that go beyond just trying to get the students to be excited about science. To me, that doesn't mean it, or to help a student become interested or to make them engage. Those things I'm not looking for that. I'm looking more for evidence of teachers seeing the STEM content as a medium for disrupting systemic inequities, for seeing opportunities to help students make connections to the content, to examples within their community, within the school, the policies. For example, for me, and when I was a middle school teacher at one point, I helped my students use the school policy for the bathroom through STEM to show them through the urinary system the implications of the inequities of certain teachers saying that you can use a bathroom or you cannot use a bathroom. And so I was helping students understand that these policies of whether or not you can go to the bathroom or not, we're infringing on their rights as it relates to their ability to release their bladder. But I made it a whole lesson for them to understand what are the impacts to their body when they're not able to release their bladder, and how long-term, these are some of the things that could be consequences for them, but they don't think about it at, 10 and 11 or 12 or 13 years of age. But when you become older and you have incontinence or you have all of these different complications, you try to trace, like, where did this come from? And so for me, success is helping teachers see the content for more than just an opportunity to perform well on test, but to get the students to be able to see the content as a way to analyze and make decisions in life that are informed by science, that are informed by the math, that are informed by things that they know are creators of inequities. And so how can I speak to those inequities in ways that are factual and not just emotional? So my students knew that if you don't think it's fair, then you got to give me facts. Like, where are the facts coming from? And so that's where I really measure success, is how are the teachers understanding culturally relevant pedagogy in ways beyond just the excitement of, oh, my kids are coming to class and they love, but why? How are they seeing the application of it to their lived experiences and to the transformations of structures that are inequitable? So that's success for me.
Tara, that's probably one of the best examples I've ever heard of the application of culturally relevant pedagogy. Thank you so much. I mean, I've heard it described in other contexts, and so often it does seem mostly like connecting to kids' interests, right? Without that explicit connection you're making to content and power inequities, etc. So thank you. Okay, Janice, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I think it's a great question, because actually that's one of the first questions we ask our participants: what is success to you? And so we really take a participatory approach, and I kind of think about success like a nested model. And so maybe right in the center is the research team. So and making sure that on our research team, the power dynamics that seem to be exist in higher education, we take a very participatory approach on our team to make sure that research assistant, graduate students, everybody has a voice, and all ideas are valued. So I really think that's like the heart of all. That's where all success comes from, like a strong team and a strong collaborative participatory team. Then beyond that, you have the participants and the research design. And I really think about that in terms of, a lot of people will refer to like impact metrics or the quantitative or the numbers. I mean, that is a piece of it, but that's definitely not the whole story. And so I think, like Tara, we try to really dive deeper. And how do we know we have impact when we hear things from teachers who say things like, they're doing things differently, or everything that we've been doing with them has led them to like different practices, or I thought I knew what this was before this, and now I'm like relearning, all very similar types of things. And so going beyond that is that that success. And then I think that's how we know we've had some impact, whether it be in schools and teachers, with leaders. And so I think about that. And then beyond that, I really think about like, how are we then impacting beyond the scope of the research? And then how do we know that this is then sort of being part of this larger community? So in my area, for example, it's computer science education research, right? How are we continuing those conversations with the field to sort of collectively drive new directions? And then in this case, it's broadening participation in computing, right? Same with this math data science project I'm on. How do we know, right? Like, we're bringing in other partners. We're really looking at math pathways. So I think beyond the scope of the research, I think in terms of nested, I really take that participatory, and I think co-design was mentioned earlier, really trying to make sure that we have all voices throughout the process.
Wow, Janice, there's so much there to think about. And I just, well, picking on one piece, this idea of a nested model, I think is really powerful, and not seeing your project as focused only on the impact of participants, no matter how, not dismissing the importance of that, but looking also at your project as a way to, as a lever to change the field and the larger discourse, I think is really, really important and really exciting. So, and I will just say, I know that NSF has been known in the past, I'm not sure how much that's true now, for funding a lot of projects that don't have any lasting, you know, even built-in dissemination. And I was curious, Peter, and this kind of leads into you about your point about spending the last year in dissemination, because I think that is so crucial too. But Peter, so what's success in your project?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think Janet's answer is great, and I see all those elements of working together as a team and going for different things. And I agree that sustainability in some form is important for success. And as we know, as soon as the grant money dries up, usually the grant comes to an end or the project intervention comes to an end. And for us, sustainability has meant that we see what we have done as successful and our data suggests it, but how many of our population can come to a Saturday workshop? And so wouldn't it be more effective if we had what we developed into schools? And so we worked with ASAP, people in our college got a grant to do professional development. So we converted what we did as a Saturday program into a grades 3 through 6 curriculum so that we could do teacher professional development for that curriculum and have it sustained that way. And then just going back to what Tara said, I think ultimately it goes, success is defined by the students and what they're able to do. And I've been involved with a lot of teacher education grants. You know, we had the 50,000 Eisenhower grants a long time ago, and this grants like that. And it always seemed like the holy grail. You could always make an impact with teachers, improve their self-efficacy for teaching. And then you try and get to the student level, and it's like, no, you couldn't find anything there. It was such a hard thing to find. But so it is a little bit more rewarding working. And I think part of the problem is you're evaluating whether teachers are making a change before the teachers have fully understood and practiced what you're trying to implement. So it's been great that we could work directly with students ourselves and then take what we learned there and then do teacher professional development. But I think ultimately, going back to what Tara said, it's not just that we're trying to have a fun experiment or a fun experience, that somehow students have to join concepts together, either within a subject area or join a concept to their external lives. And the moment you have those aha moments and get them excited about a particular subject area, to me, that's how I define success, is when you can see just the aha moments, there's excitement for making a discovery, not for some cool colors or explosion, but just joining concepts together and getting excited about that. To me, that's the ultimate success.
Great, thanks. It's so interesting to see the common threads across your projects too. I keep thinking, geez, there's really room for collaboration here. Thinking, for example, about the impact on teachers and Tara's follow-up of teachers to see what they're actually doing with what you're training them in culturally relevant pedagogy, or involving the girls in designing professional development, which I think is awesome. I'd never thought of that. So, but then coming back to the impact on the students, as you said, Peter. So really, really thought-provoking here. So our just an hour is slowly winding down. Anyone else have questions before we jump into kind of a wrap-up question back to NSF? Nope. Peter, I'm going to start with you, and just to kind of wrap up and bring the focus back to one of the things we promised, which was to talk a little bit about NSF or your funding agencies. Can you say a little bit about why you chose the program that you did as a source of support? And any insights into preparing proposals, how applying for an NSF grant might be different from other agencies, or what you thought was important to your success in actually achieving funding? Sorry, that's a lot.
Sure, no, that's fine. So we applied for AISL, AISL, which is Advancing Informal Science Learning. And that's what we were interested in, out-of-school experiences for the Latinx population. One of the things that we did was we wrote an NSF grant before we were ready, and we kind of realized it probably wouldn't get very far, but at least we'd get feedback. And then the second year we took that and we did our darnest and wrote a strong grant, and it wasn't funded. And they said, oh, you have a great advisory panel. Maybe you should consider having somebody from your advisory panel be a co-PI with you. And that's where we had Margarita Jimenez Silva, who used to be a colleague of ours here, but she's at UC Davis now. And so we put her on, and she added some elements that we didn't think about, and had a stronger theoretical foundation. So that was it, being responsive to their feedback, improving the team, but being persistent in terms of what we wanted to do. And that ultimately, I think, led for our success. And I'll just say it again, we're very happy that we built in this dissemination year as part of the grant. I think oftentimes you don't do that, and you're just doing the projects and being overwhelmed when they're being implemented, and you don't oftentimes have the time to do the dissemination, because as Janice mentioned, there's so many elements that you need to keep an eye on, and it's just, you easily get behind in every aspect of life. So it's nice to have this year of dissemination.
Great, thanks. What an interesting recommendation to get one of your advisory board members as a co-PI. That's really brilliant. I love it. And one thing I do know from my own experience and those of others, persist. Getting turned down does not mean you're rejected forever, but use that as an opportunity to learn and develop what you're doing. So Janice, what was your experience like?
I was part of a DRK-12 grant prior to the career grant, and I was one of the cadre fellows, and put that in the chat as well. And that really exposed me to a community of other early career researchers who then put me on a track to complete a project. And so for me, accountability really helped. Being part of this community where we all had our own little projects that we had to complete and then were accountable for, and then got feedback. I think it's just treating myself as a learner in the process. And I guess my goal wasn't necessarily to get the funding, although I know that's the goal, but it was really, for me, just really experimenting, again, going to STEM in my life. I just really thought of it like the feedback is so valuable. I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, and put ideas out there and kind of just see where it heads. But talking to others, being part of that community, all of us are better than any of us is really the view I take. And then, just pragmatically, just putting that one pager together, really getting confident with what is the intellectual merit, what is the broader impacts of your project, and how does it align to those criteria, and then putting that forward to, like Peter said, advisors, experts in the field, getting their eyes on it. You want to make sure that what you're doing hasn't been done before, so that's always a good first check. But I think that practically, that's always helpful. Just get that one pager out there, as many people as you can, and then keep going from there. But for me, it's not about me. It's really been about me learning from the community. I'm so grateful to all the people in my life that have really helped me along the way. And I would also mention Juliana Carson. She's not on here, but Howard, our grants team, our research team. I see Ashley on here. I mean, it's the team. I mean, my goodness, I am just, it's not me alone, believe me. I mean, we have a whole support behind us, and it's incredible. So just want to throw that out there as well.
Awesome, Janice. It's such an important point. Even if you're the PI, the only PI, usually there's a whole team that's involved at every stage of the process. So, and I can't speak highly enough about the folks in our Office of Research Advancement. I mean, compared to many other places I've been, they're just over the top in terms of their support. So
yeah,
call out
that's
to them.
Also our IRB, when you compare our IRB
my
to other
goodness,
people,
yes.
it's like, oh my goodness.
Yes,
It's
yes.
much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our faculty. I mean, I was looking for a research assistant, and literally I emailed one faculty member. That faculty member said, I'm not responsible for it, but so-and-so is. Email them, emailed that person. No joke. Within an hour, that person had recommended somebody, emailed me their resume, CV. And I mean, it's just amazing. So I just want to be so grateful for the place that we are in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tara, you get the last word. What insights do you have to share about the process, your success? Let us know.
Peter and Janice, I mean, they've done a really good job of setting me up to just kind of conclude with some things that have not been said. I think for me, my success has been positioning myself as a learner. I came in as a postdoc. I was fortunate to understudy under Dr. Kimberly Scott, who was in the School of Social Transformation, who was an amazing person for grants. And so I just positioned myself as a learner. I literally took notes, I observed, I paid attention to the details that were emphasized as important to when you write a grant. I listened, even key things like, don't ask for money just to help you understand. Like, I don't use the word understand because who wants to give you $5 million to understand something? I don't want to invest in you to understand anything. And so just things like that, knowing what words not to use make a difference between whether your good idea is funded or not. And so I would just encourage everyone here, just, tag yourself along to someone who is successful and just understudy them for at least a year so that you can see what they're doing, understand what their process looks like before you take that leap out there and put a proposal forward. Because I think to me, that's where my success has been situated in just positioning myself as a learner and just not being too anxious, but just taking time and being patient. And that patience looking like I'm just studying you. I'm studying everything that you're doing, and I'm trying to understand what that process looks like.
Oh, that's a great note to end on. And actually, I would say we have 3 potential mentors right here now that we know. So, Dr. Janice and Peter, I shouldn't offer you as mentors necessarily, but certainly what you've shared suggests that you really know how to put these proposals together, but also to really foreground the important work that you want to do in terms of transforming these systems. So, so yeah, I would agree, Meseret. This has been just super impressive work, very helpful advice. So I'm just sorry we had to cut short the session because of our troubles with getting access to the Zoom room. I think we could talk quite a bit further about this work, but it's exciting to get a taste of what you've been doing and see some of the interconnections. The recording will be posted, so we'll get that up in the next few days for others to take advantage of. And just want to thank you all again. A reminder, there'll be no Just an Hour next week. We'll have the face-to-face all-college meeting. And then I think we have canceled the following session due to ARA. So it'll be a couple more weeks, 3 more weeks actually, for our last Just an Hour of the semester. We'll be talking about a partnership between some of our LFCs and Dublin City University. So with that, thank you all for spending an hour with us on this Friday afternoon. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and thanks again to Janice, Peter, and Tara for sharing their experience and expertise. Thank you all.